decaffeinated.
All right, let's do this then.
This is the Jeff and Bill Show.
I don't agree with that.
They don't always agree, but hey, at least they have coffee.
Coffee.
And each other.
Coffee, man.
Well, it's 9 a.m. in the Mile High City. I think I said 10 during the last hour. I apologize. People text in. They always hold me accountable. I love it. Thank you. It's 9 a.m. Mile High City, Friday, June 27th, 2025. Good morning. You've tuned in to the Jeff and Bill Show. News Talk 710 KNUS. Very excited for our next guest. Robert Maranto is going to be joining us. He's the 21st Century Chair in Leadership in the Department of Education Reform at the University of Arkansas. Big title. Big thinker. He's got a new piece out in Real Clear Politics against presidential politicization, how postmodernism has wrecked the spoils system. Fascinating piece. Excited to have him on. He'll be joining us just after news and comment with Blake Olson. And then we're going to wrap with some poetry from Cowboy poet Jeff Hildebrandt. Man, what a show today. And a special thank you to Deep Singh Badesha for joining us, a progressive political strategist. Now is time for news and comment with Blake Olson.
Blake Olson.
Blake Olson, news and comment.
Good morning, TGIF 76 and beautiful in Denver. Expecting a high of 91 today. News is presented by the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews. Now is the time to stand with Israel. Call 800-301-1188. That's 800-301-1188. Or go to 710knus.com and click on the big red Stand with Israel banner at the top of the page. Our top story, the Trump administration is being granted a partial stay for injunctions regarding an executive order aimed at ending birthright citizenship for some. In a 6-3 vote, the Supreme Court has ruled that universal injunctions, quote, likely exceed the equitable authority that Congress has granted to federal courts, end of quote. The ruling was not on Trump's executive order itself. Trump's executive order aims to limit automatic birthright citizenship to children who are born to at least one parent who is either a U.S. citizen or permanent U.S. resident. The Senate is aiming to open debate on President Trump's big, beautiful bill today, but there are new challenges. The Senate parliamentarian, also known as the referee, rejected key Medicaid provisions in the GOP's tax and spending bill. That means the measure is still being worked on, and several Republicans say they won't debate it until they see the final version. But 47 warning them.
If the bill doesn't pass, there'll be a 68% tax increase. Think of that, 68%, which would be the largest in history by about 40 points. And we'll make the Trump tax cuts permanent, expand the child tax credit, and we will deliver no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, and no tax on Social Security for our great seniors.
The House is receiving their intel briefing on the strikes on Iran. Yesterday, Democrat and Republican senators had vastly different takeaways after their briefing, of course, after what CNN did. Tom Cotton of Arkansas says he learned the U.S. airstrikes on Iranian nuclear facilities were an extraordinary success. And by the way, attorneys for DJT ready to sue the New York Times and CNN for the leak early, right after following the strikes on Iran. Deep Singh Badesha, a progressive thinker, on with the Pushback Boys, Jeff and Bill, last hour, and he's defending Zoran Mamdani, who's the communist running for mayor of New York City. One of the crazy ideas by Mamdani is government-run grocery stores. Oh, that's a good idea, yeah. But Deep Singh, I love listening to this guy, and a great guest. Here's what he had to say about that.
Right now in New York City, like they're in Denver, Colorado, and other places, especially if you're in Parker, you might experience this, is there's food deserts where the only good meal you can get is from a fast food chain or from a different chain. You don't have a grocery store in the area. I think it makes sense, and you've seen this across different markets, is when there is a gap in the market and the private sector is not coming in to fill that gap, it does make sense for government to come in and fill that gap. So the pilot program he wants to run is government-run grocery stores to reduce the price of groceries, to go into these food deserts, and they're going to run it. And if it works out well, then I think they'll continue. If it doesn't, they won't.
That is the dumbest idea, one of the dumbest ideas I've ever heard, but I love that guy, and I think we're going to make Deep Sing, we're going to make him a conservative in less than a year. I think we can turn him, and he will end up being one of the great conservatives in Colorado. But that is absolutely ridiculous, and there's no food deserts in Parker, Colorado. Okay, if there's a fast food joint, there are grocery stores.
There's actually almost too many grocery stores.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Aren't there? There's like 8 right on Parker Road, right, that I can think of. My goodness, man. What a smart guy, though. I like him. He is extremely likable.
Very likable.
We really need to get, I want to meet with this guy, and we need to talk, and we need to turn him.
Deep and Blake into a room and see who comes out.
I would love that, man, because he could be a star. I could see him as a Republican governor of Colorado.
100%. Yep.
You know? Yeah, let's turn him, man. He's just young, man. He's just young, and he's got a lot of energy. He's quick. Man, what a quick brain, though. He's probably a great comedian. There's no doubt about that. Let's go Deep Sing. I'm rooting for you. U.S. Senior Open at the Broadmoor today through Sunday. Rocks at the Brewers tonight. First pitch 6:10. Dodgers beat the Rockies 3-1. By the way, on Thursday afternoon. It's about that time for the weekend. 73 in Northglenn, 74 in Highlands Ranch, 76 in Denver. And time for more of Jeff and Billy in the final hour. Blake Olson, News Talk, 710 KNUS.
Thunderstorms are going to take a little bit of a break here in Denver and along the Front Range as drier air comes over the divide and into the Front Range. Sunny, mid to upper 80s today. Sunny, 85 to 90 for Friday. Lower to mid 90s Saturday. Today through Saturday, likely dry. Upper 80s Sunday with thunderstorms returning. More thunderstorms likely next week. Weather, sponsored by Colorado's Best Roofing, reminding you to protect your home from the harsh Colorado weather and schedule your free no-obligation roof inspection today at roofingcolorado.com. That's roofingcolorado.com. Meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
We're going to be joined here in just a second by Robert Maranto, the 21st Century Chair in Leadership at the Department of Education Reform at the University of Arkansas. We've got some free tickets to give away real quick.
Yes, we do. We have yet another pair of general admission tickets to the USGA Senior Open in Colorado Springs. You will be hanging out at the Broadmoor watching the old Duffer spank Whitey, but only if you call me right now. 303-696-1971. 303-696-1971. This time we are taking caller number 5. These are gallery tickets that are available. We have the other seats that are available soon. There goes the phone lines. Caller number 5 right now, and you are going to see the old guys play golf. Back to you, Jeff.
All right. Well, joining us now is Robert Maranto. He's written an interesting piece in Real Clear Politics against presidential politicization, how postmodernism has wrecked the spoils of system. Good morning, Bob. Thanks for joining the Jeff and Bill Show.
Hey, great to be here.
Let's talk about this piece. I'm intrigued. First of all, tell people about the spoils system, and you get into a really interesting argument about how, well, we don't reward people for telling truth anymore. It's more about loyalty. So, yeah, give us a rundown of your article here.
Yeah, I mean, basically, presidents have always, and governors and mayors have always used the spoils system to reward their friends, to help win election, but also to put their stamp on policy, right? It's an important part of how democracy works. but it's also always been limited. I mean, even like Andrew Jackson only replaced about 20% of the civil service. Lincoln did a few more because we were in the Civil War, and he didn't want a bunch of Confederates in the federal government. That kind of made sense. But spoils has always been kind of self-limiting. By reality, if everything goes to hell, right? If you can't fight wars and you can't coin money and you can't build roads and you can't do the basic stuff government's supposed to do, you're going to lose the next re-election. You're going to lose the next election. So there are built-in controls that keep it from being too crazy. What bothers me nowadays is we're in a postmodern era, and it's kind of started, I would say, mostly in the left, like from universities, but the right has certainly picked this up. The idea that there aren't any objective truths, right? That we can't say, who won an election? Did the Russians do it? Whatever. Is inflation a problem or not a problem? Or are police, horrible racist murderers, or mostly good professionals doing what they're supposed to do? People can't agree on basic facts. And when you have a situation, you can't hold government accountable. And politicians potentially could do anything. They could have government contracts all going to their buddies, all going to their companies. They could just hire their friends. There aren't the kind of controls on what's happening. The same thing happens in universities, where a lot of fields in universities no longer have a connection to truth. A lot of them argue that the whole idea of objective truth is white supremacy, which is absurd, right? But yet you hear that a lot. So I think in this era, spoils can't really work, and we have to sort of rebuild notions of objective truth. We have to rebuild an idea of how government's supposed to work, an idea of how universities are supposed to work, and that's going to take us 10 or 20 years. It's going to be forever. There's no quick fixes to this. I know Trump, in my view, is doing a lot of really outrageous things, and the media is correctly reporting on them. Biden was also doing a lot of outrageous things, and the media was either quiet or even supportive of them. And that's a huge problem. The media no longer has the credibility, academia no longer has the credibility to hold government accountable. You really saw that in COVID, where we had any number of stupid policies that were furthered by the news media, were furthered by large bureaucracies. So that's my long take on this. I actually thought the old system worked pretty well. I mean, I'm a Republican most years, but I worked for the Clinton administration. I was proud to do so. There was a certain reality there. If you were a Clinton political appointee and you screwed up, you were going to probably get fired, right, or given a lesser job or whatever. We don't have those kind of mechanisms of truth that keep people accountable anymore. You just deny the truth if it's happening, if something's going that you don't like.
That's Robert Maranto. He's the 21st Century Chair in Leadership at the Department of Education Reform at the University of Arkansas. Now, to risk sounding too much like Pontius Pilate, what is truth?
That's a great question. The whole science is based on the idea that there are objective truths. We can measure them. We can argue about how we measure them. For sure, we can argue about interpretation sometimes, but there are objective truths. I mean, COVID either is a threat to school children or it isn't. It isn't, right? Police are actually killing huge numbers of people in a racist fashion, or they're not. They're not. In a given year, 600 to 70,000 cops kill about 12 to 15 unarmed black people, some of whom were attacking the cops, right? There's no, a lot of Black Lives Matter is simply based on inaccuracies. Now, they might be well-intentioned inaccuracies, but they're inaccuracies. The 2024 election wasn't stolen. The 2020 election wasn't stolen. We've got a lot of evidence for this. The 2016 election, despite what Hillary Clinton sometimes says, wasn't stolen. There are objective truths, and there are ways to figure out what they are. I mean, a key thing I think is a problem in academia and the news media, the conventional news media, is that there are so few voices on the right that we don't have people to check the crazier left-wing excesses, right? We don't have people in the newsroom saying, hey, there's actually a lot of evidence that biological sex is a real thing, right? Right? I mean, we don't have enough people making those points, and those allow the media and academia to go off the rails in ways that mean that regular people don't trust them anymore. And so when we say things that are accurate, like, January 6th was pretty outrageous. I mean, we have a 220-year tradition of peaceful transfers of power that President Trump was trying to disrupt. But when we say that, people don't trust us because we get so many things wrong, almost always protecting the left, that nobody trusts us. So we can't hold President Trump accountable, if that kind of makes sense.
Now, Robert Maranto, 21st Century Chair of Leadership at the Department of Education Reform at the University
the
of
most
Arkansas.
Pretentious title ever, by the way. I can't stand
really
it, but
long.
they pay me to do that. So
Dude, that's fantastic. You got to have that like in embossed gold letters on the front of the door. Don't like in calligraphy.
There's a former dean put this fancy. Yeah. He actually put this fancy set of crests on all of our doors. We thought it was a little flaky, but again, hey, I don't. I'm not the boss, right? So
yeah.
The dean wants to put a fancy thing on my door, I'm going to say sure.
Now, I appreciate what you're saying about conservative voices not pushing back on some things inside the liberal sphere, but you did reference the election fraud around 2020. There was an entire conservative cottage industry that popped up around the idea that the election was stolen. We had books, we had speaking tours, we had symposiums, we had a movie being made about it, a whole bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
Does the critique hold as well on the right? That it's not just the idea that one political party is going off and running around. Is it that on both sides, we're not holding each other accountable? And we use this thematic, and where I'm going with this, we use this theme on this show, the Jeff and Bill Show, all the time, is we have now gotten to a point where our politics determines our truth. We don't allow truth to determine our politics.
You were absolutely right, and it's a huge problem on both sides. I did something funny that I wouldn't have done 20 years ago. When the 2020 election, when the results were coming out, I do a lot of field work in Arizona, and I know Arizona elections are they're straight, right? They're honest elections. Georgia and Pennsylvania, I spent a lot of time there too. I'm not so sure about them. So I literally called friends of mine who were involved in electioneering in those two states. One was actually on a state election board, and I said, "Look, is there any truth to this notion that the elections might have been stolen?" And they assured me that there was none. That is it possible that a couple of ballots might have been packed somewhat? Sure, it's possible. Nothing like the degree of fraud that would have changed the outcomes. And elections are always imperfect, right? I mean, ask Al Gore, right? Ask Richard Nixon from 1960. There's always issues in close elections. In all elections, in close elections, we notice them. But think about that. I trusted the media so little that I literally called people I knew to say, hey, what happened here, right? That's kind of where we are. People don't trust the official organs of truth-telling. So we're kind of, even when people like me acknowledge there are truths, we go around to ask our friends what's really happening. There's no trust. We're becoming more like Sicily or more like Latin America, where we can't trust the official organs of truth, so we have to find our own sideways ways of getting at it, which is weird. And it's going to take us 20 years to rebuild that. I'm mostly in the education area, and I see again and again education professors will say stuff that's just wrong. It's just factually wrong, right? Phonics is white supremacy. No, phonics is the way that you teach any alphabetic language, right? That's idiotic. But yet I hear prominent people saying stuff like that. We have to rebuild academia. We have to rebuild the media in ways that we can trust them. And that's going to take years and years.
Now, what I want to ask you about, Robert Maranto, is the idea of rebuilding the trust. Are we at a point in America where our trust is built on if you say what I agree with? Is it what I'm looking at is I see such a large mountain for us to climb, for us to get back to objective truth and trust. Because for me, we've gotten to a place in our society where you only trust the people that reinforce your confirmation bias. Your idea on that?
I mean, I think you're right. I think it's going to take years. Some of the answer has to be through education, to just teach people basic facts and teach people how to question not just the other side, but their own side. And that too is going to take years. And teachers' unions and ed schools, frankly, are not going to be our allies on this. But yeah, no, I think you're right. We have to teach people how to understand that everyone is biased. We are all biased. We're biased. We are all inclined to accept facts we want to believe in. And we have to teach young people, and in particular college students who are supposed to have a little more sophistication, to go around that. We're doing a terrible job of that. In fact, elite schools are doing a terrible job of that. I'll hear students at Columbia or Harvard saying stuff that's just idiotic, right? And it's clear they've only been exposed to one point of view. And that's not their fault, right? That's the fault of their elders, the fault of their professors, their administrators. Harvard is actually making progress. I think they realize they've really screwed up, and the new president is making some sensible changes. I think Harvard 5 years from now will be in a better place. But here's what's depressing. I didn't vote for Trump. I think there are a lot of very questionable things about the guy. But I'm not sure those sort of changes would be happening under a Democratic president. Democrats just support the news media and academia no matter what, because they know it's mostly on their side. But if those institutions are putting out stuff that's idiotic, it's going to hurt everybody, including the Democratic Party, in the long term, right? And we need to understand that.
It seems to me that it's a drive agenda at all costs, Machiavellian, damn the torpedoes, press through, even if you make a mistake, we never apologize, that type of thing, because in their minds, the issues are so important. So you bring up Harvard. I'm watching a video of Harvard's law school graduation where it's student after student getting up holding a flag about Palestine and how oppressive Israel is. And if you believe in the kind of Marxist worldview of oppressors versus oppressed, okay, what Israel is doing is so terrible at the level of genocide that you have a moral duty now to interrupt your graduation to raise a flag. If you don't do it, you're not a good person. So it becomes so agenda driven that and so rooted in this Marxist oppressor versus oppressed worldview that if you're not doing it, you're a bad person. Your thoughts, sir?
Well, here I think that there's a lot of truth to that. Here's what's interesting. Very quickly, once Bill Ackman and other Harvard alumni started calling out anti-Semitism, and I would say it really was anti-Semitism, right? Israel is not perfect, God knows, but it's got the best human rights record in the region. In its war on Gaza, which the Israelis did not start. They're killing a lot of people, but honestly, probably comparable to what we did in Fallujah. Certainly way better than what the Syrian regime did in Aleppo and elsewhere. It's not genocide. It's something like genocide. And to say it is arguably kind of anti-Semitic. You're holding the single Jewish state to a way higher standard than anyone else. Once Bill Ackman and others started pointing out that, hey, these guys are being anti-Semitic, and that started hurting Harvard grads in the job market, and also a lot of Harvard grads switched, and they suddenly were quiet. A lot of times, these people, they're just saying stuff because it's fashionable, and as soon as there's some kind of penalty for doing it, they will flip because they don't necessarily have a lot of strong values. But I think a deeper problem is they're never exposed to other points of view. They're never exposed to points of view that, the Israelis have, on many occasions in the last 40 years, offered the Palestinians, who they keep beating in wars, by the way, a pretty reasonable state, a viable state. And the Palestinians kept saying, no, we want everything. And so who's at fault here, right? I mean, I think I'm pro-Palestinian, but I'm certainly not pro-Hamas or even Fatah. I don't think they're serving their people very well. And by the way, if Gaza had elections, which of course they don't, I think Hamas would have lost this last time around, because guess what? When you invade a country that has 10 times your size, about 5 times your size and 30 times your military power, it's going to go really badly, and your people are going to pay a terrible price. And in any sort of normal democratic system, you will not get reelected. Hamas doesn't have to worry about that, right? We never teach students that, never. Something else doesn't get any attention. A lot of Middle Eastern studies departments have imposed their own boycott, divest, and sanction thing. Like if you're a student and you want to do a study abroad in Israel, they say no. They just plain say no. They're not hiring anybody who thinks Israel has a right to exist. These are serious problems, and it means that we're not doing a good job educating future elites. We're doing a terrible job, and that's going to bite us down the road. You earlier in the segment, you were talking about a guy who was talking about government-owned grocery stores. Look, we never teach people that the Soviet Union, Cuba, Venezuela, They failed horribly, right? We don't want to go back to this, right? We've got 100 years of experience with Marxists running countries. It's worked out terribly. In every one of them, people tried to escape, and nobody tried to, last I checked, there's a huge number of people trying to escape from Cuba to Florida, and nobody's trying to move from Florida to Cuba, right? We don't teach this, so students are unaware of it. That really has huge downstream effects. And so we've got to do a better job with our K-12 education and with our higher ed, or we will lose our democracy. The funny thing about January 6th, I thought it was kind of hilarious. So right after it happened, the NewsHour, which is often a pretty good show, it's PBS, so it's left-wing, but it's not crazy. They had Ibram Kendi was their big guest to discuss it. And I was like, I've read a lot of Ibram Kendi. He hates the U.S. Constitution. He thinks the only thing wrong with January 6th is that he wasn't doing it. Trump supporters were doing it, right? And PBS was so clueless. They had no idea that that's what they were doing. It's going to take us 20 years to rebuild the media, to rebuild K-12 and higher ed. And we've got to start doing it now.
That's Robert Maranto. He's the 21st Century Chair in Leadership at the Department of Education Reform at the University of Arkansas. Great piece in Real Clear Politics if you want to read it. Robert, how can people follow you and connect with your writings and be a part of what you're doing?
That's a great question. I'm not really on Twitter, so really just do some Google searches for my stuff or shoot me an email if you want me to send stuff. My Vita, I think, is online. One thing I'll say is our department is the 5th-ranked department nationally in education policy. We have a great PhD program. We're actually better than Harvard, in fact. And all of our students are getting jobs, and our fellowships are very generous, typically about $35,000 a year plus free tuition. So think about applying to our program if you want to study education, study how to improve education.
That's great. Well, I sure appreciate your time today. Again, Robert Maranto with the University of Arkansas. Thank you for taking time.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks so much. Really enjoyed it.
Bill liked his independent thinking.
Really cool.
Yeah, that's right down awesome. Bill's line.
Yeah, that was interesting. I liked a lot of things that he was saying, and I appreciated the open critique on both sides. There are a lot of things that he said, and then he started talking, and that's why I asked him about the idea of, are we using our politics to determine our truth? And yeah, it's pretty much what we are doing, and that we spend more times complaining about what the other side is doing than taking care of our own house, not understanding that sometimes, just like Michael Jackson said, the problem really is the man in the mirror.
It's so fun.
Thanks.
All right, let's talk about high appliance. Right now in my head, I have, I'm starting with the man in the mirror. We go from this nice intellectual conversation to Michael Jackson and his little head nod.
You should always hear. You should hear the soundtrack that's playing in my head all the time. Yes.
All right, Mountain High Appliance, Denver's Clearance Center is the place to shop for the big Independence Day savings. You can save up to 70% on top-of-the-line appliances from premium brands like Sub-Zero, Wolf, Thermador, and more. When quality matters as much as budget, visit Mountain High Appliance's Denver's Clearance Center today. Mountain High Appliance, Denver Clearance Center. When you think appliances, think locally owned. Mountain High Appliance. We've got Cowboy Poetry and the big giveaway coming up next. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710 KNUS. You want to go hang out with all the shishi rich people at the USGA Senior Open this weekend? We've got your passes coming up next.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Now's the time y'all been waiting for. Billy, what do we got?
Oh, yes. This is the big one. All right, so you got to get your dialing fingers ready. Get that redial ready. 303-696-1971, 303-696-1971. We are going to go a little bit back. We're going to go back to caller number 7. Here's the deal. We are giving away tickets, and hang on. Wait. I'm blocking them off right now, so you can't call early. We're going to run through this here and I'll let you know when the phone line's open. We are giving away right now a pair of Champions Club tickets to the USGA Senior Open in Colorado Springs, the Broadmoor. You are hanging out with the creme de la creme. You have to say it like that when you talk about this. It's good for either Saturday or Sunday. Dude, these tickets, we're talking more than like $5, okay? These are serious level tickets. We're talking full hospitality. You are treated like the best of the best. This is complimentary lunch, complimentary beer, complimentary wine. You get the bathrooms, so you have the little thing of potpourri and those small towels you're not supposed to touch. Yeah, that's what we're talking about here. Everything covered. You get access to the Clubhouse Championship Hospitality Room and Grounds either day, Saturday or Sunday. This is the very highest upscale experience at the USGA Senior Open in Colorado Springs, the Broadmoor. That's what we're giving you a shot at right now. 303-696-1971. We are going to take the 7th caller. Phone lines are open now. Good luck.
All right. While Bill's handling that, I get to listen to some cowboy poetry. Morning, Jeff Hildebrandt.
Well, good morning. I heard on Fox News this morning the president wants passage of a measure for us all, and he's asked the legislature to say yes before the fall. We ask you to support this and really hope you will. Just keep listening weekday mornings to our own big, beautiful Bill.
He does joke. That's what his wife calls him. My big, beautiful Bill.
Yeah.
That's great.
And last week, I was listening before I came on about some of the heated conversations that were being had, and it brought this to mind. When the temperature rises, we should just head inside to avoid the hot air caused when lifestyles collide. Turn left or turn right and you're in for a fight, but if you're a believer, you can cool down the fever. Just don't raise your voice if you don't like their choice. Remember, you don't have to do it. Just forget and forgive, 'cause it's their life to live. That's just about all there is to it. God's wise words are seen in Proverbs 15. A soft answer turns away wrath. So react with a smile, and in a short while, their hot air and anger will pass. But if you berate, it will just escalate, and nobody wins such a mess. One more thought I'll share. Remember, with prayer, there's a much better chance of success.
That is beautiful, reasonable, rooted in Scripture and faithful, and hard for Jeff and Bill to hear sometimes. A kind word? Absolutely not.
Oh, well.
Fascist, communist.
Oh, well.
No, that is a great reminder, and that, Jeff, is why Scripture is so important with regards to civility.
Oh, yeah.
In our society.
Yeah, definitely.
That's one of the side effects of kicking the Bible out, kicking God out of schools. We have to abide by that reminder to pray for our enemies, love and serve them.
Yeah, love your enemies.
Kind words, all that stuff.
Yeah.
You don't find that really anywhere else.
Nope, not at all.
Yeah. What else you got for us, sir?
All right. Wait, before we do that,
do we have a winner?
We have to talk to our very special winner. Yes. Have you listened to the show? I interrupt everybody around here. All right. I'm bringing on our very special winner. Lynn has won the tickets to go to the Championship Club at the USGA Senior Open this morning. Congratulations, Lynn. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you so much. My husband is going to be so happy.
Oh, that's fantastic. Now, we had a winner last week, and I just said that if there are any honeydew things that you got to do, you could kind of hold that over him and say, hey, I got these great tickets, and, you take care of the fence, you make sure the lawn's mowed, and then you can take him. And again, these are the top of the top of the top. I mean, you are going to the hospitality club, food, beer, wine, and, of course, The fancy, fancy bathrooms with the potpourri and the tiny towels. So again, enjoy it, Lynn. Thanks you so much for listening.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Love you guys. Thank
Congratulations.
You.
Have a great
Great
weekend.
to hear. Congratulations, Lynn. Yeah, even if you didn't win tickets, I think you can still buy them and go down to the USGA at the Broadmoor this weekend through Sunday. It's going to be beautiful out there. The weather's going to be nice, so enjoy it. Take advantage of it. But we have sold or given away all of our tickets at this point. So unless you want to call to talk to Jeff Hildebrandt.
I was actually planning this weekend, but there's a miniature golf place right by me, and I was going to go stand out and watch that. But I've seen these little kids hit the balls and knock them into the parking lot when they're on miniature golf. You know, it's not quite the same.
Okay, here's the thing. I've got this idea that I've wanted to do for years, where I get a bunch of friends together, and what we do is you have a crowd that kind of shows up with signs and stuff. They start gathering at the miniature golf course. Then you have a couple of people pull up and act as if they're professionals. Get someone behind them that is following them with a small speaker going, and now, yes, this is the so-and-so's championship.
Caddy.
Yeah.
A miniature golf caddy.
Yes, exactly.
Carry your
Go,
putter
yes,
around
a caddy,
for
yes.
you.
And you have like two clubs, and they're both putters, but he just has to choose. Yes, and just randomly do it. But, pay the admission, everybody else there, but just do it. But just all of a sudden have the rest of the people at the miniature golf place going, the hell is this?
Well, it is going to be good weather this weekend. It's going to get hot, 94 degrees on Saturday. If your air conditioner's not working, you got to give L&L Heating and Air Conditioning a call. They came out, replaced our air conditioner, total replacement, plus furnace, one-day installation, was fantastic. Personal service from start to finish, unlike some of those corporate HVAC companies that won't even return my phone call. I have the family of the owners that own this company. They called me to make sure everything was great, even came out on the weekends. This is locally owned, operated, personal service. L&L Heating and Air Conditioning. Here's what they got going on right now. A free programmable thermostat or carbon monoxide detector with a new furnace or air conditioner installation. No emergency charges, $0 trip fee, price match value guarantee, free estimates, licensed and insured, and 5-year labor warranty. Everything works great. Our family couldn't be happier. So if you're looking for fast, honest, reliable service, I highly recommend L&L Heating and Air Conditioning, 720-851-1691 or bestdenverhvac.com. bestdenverhvac.com, 720-851-1691. All right. Jeffrey, you got another poem for us?
I do. This is called Dairy Air is More Than the Aroma at the Cow Barn. There ain't much to do when you're milking a cow except to thank the good Lord you're not pushing a plow, or maybe to ponder some news that you heard. And that's what I've done. This is true, every word. Some folks are researching why chair seats seem smaller. And to see what's behind it, they're spending millions of dollars. They want to get down to the bottom, all right, to find out why places we sit are so tight. Seems the wide open spaces we've thought of for years are like bills we don't pay. They're now in arrears. So for years they have measured each ripple and bulge to chart the results of how we indulge in popcorn and candy, in burgers and fries, because as a nation we've become supersized. We expect new regulations around 2031 when they finish their space odyssey and proclaim what must be done to make room for wider bodies using your facilities. And Uncle Sam will send you some new derriere decrees. They'll demand a bigger toilet seat to accommodate increase, and they'll ensure compliance with posterior police. They'll make you build new privies because of all the spread that comes from eating greasy food, all them sweets and bread. And then, when OSHA gets involved, expect a heated battle, 'cause they'll want wider milking stools and extenders on your saddle. So before second helpings, second thoughts would be wise. Consider the cost to your assets and thighs, 'cause the only alternative loophole that's found is to do all your business without sitting down.
That was fantastic. Jeff Hildebrandt. Will continue with him. You're listening to Jeff and Bill.
This is Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. We're sauntering into the weekend with a little cowboy poetry from Jeff Hildebrandt, our cowboy poet. Good morning, Jeff.
Well, you know, next Friday is the 4th of July.
1 week from today.
That's right. And it reminds me of an actual event that happened to me several years ago. At a stoplight right in front of me was a Patriot. It was plain to see. This pickup driver must have been one dyed-in-the-wool American. He had flag decals on his window glass and bumper stickers, both cute and crass. He's a guy you wouldn't want displeased because he runs over cowboy wannabes. He's for country music radio, the NRA, and rodeo. But in one of life's small ironies, his pickup truck was Japanese. True story.
That's funny. That's really good.
That is funny.
That's
Good
very
one.
funny.
How about one more? Do we have? You said you had a short one.
Oh, that was it.
Was it?
I was. You know, when
That
you say
was a
short
short
one,
one.
I'm thinking Bill.
Yes, exactly. Oh, that's fantastic.
Well, Jeffrey, thank you so very
Yeah,
much
you're
for
welcome.
Have a
joining.
good
We will
weekend.
not be here this next Friday.
Next
We'll have the
Friday.
day off. Do you have anything planned for the 4th?
I do. It's at NAP. NAP is what it's called.
Yeah, I will be celebrating the OG No Kings holiday. Right? You know, they're out there running. We got no kings protest. I was like, man, the OG, the original, was the 4th of July.
Yeah.
That's when we told King George.
Yeah.
Done with him.
Yeah. I was named after him, you know. George. That's my first name, just George. Last name was King, but I had to change it.
Here's the funny thing.
It's all a lie, Jeff. Don't look at me like that.
Should I go Jeff Hildebrandt and George King?
Yeah, I know a George King. I got that real name. Yeah, I know. Yeah, I know someone by that name. That's fantastic. Yeah, every once in a while on 4th of July, I'll twist people's heads just a little bit because I have a soccer jersey for the French national team. It's red, white, and blue. But it's the French national
It's
team.
the reverse.
Well,
yeah, it's not exactly.
Oh no,
right?
no, it's
is
no,
it?
it's no. The thing is, what it is again, it's just a soccer jersey. So it's mostly white with red and blue accents. So it looks very, very, very American.
Okay.
But if you know soccer, it's French. And some people have pushed back on me, and I'm like, listen. Not the French. We're still subjects at this point. You have to understand, they played an important role in that.
Bastille Day
I'm
is
sorry, Bill.
July 14th.
Yeah.
It is not soccer. It is football.
Yes, it is. Yes, and it is the most important sport on the planet. When you talk about the football, it's not. We're not just talking about. Yeah, we're not just talking about life and death.
Boy.
We're talking about something much more
You got
important.
Bill going on soccer, and I'm sitting here
I can
going,
go for
"Is
hours.
the countdown done yet?"
Yeah, he's
Does
looking
it
like,
start?
where's the music?
Okay.
Where's? Can we start the music now?
Hey, let's talk snakes, okay?
Oh, I could go hours. I had someone the other day say, "Oh, so and so has told me that you keep snakes." They also warned me that if you get going, you'll talk my ear off. I'm like, yeah, probably, yeah, that'll happen.
Okay, I will leave you with this. I cannot talk snakes. I have what's officially referred to as a reptile dysfunction.
I think they have pills for that.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes, they do. It can make the anaconda. I can't do that. No,
I guess I should have done another poem.
I love this.
Yes, probably should have done another poem. Would have been a lot stronger in this one.
All right, we covered a lot today.
Yeah, just to clean up our mess now.
The battle royale between 710K and US and KOA, you can listen to that. My wife joined us in the 7 o'clock hour to explain Supreme Court rulings. And Deep Singh Badesha, progressive political strategist, talked to us about what's going to happen to the Democrat Party as they go full commie. If you missed any of it, go to 710knus.com to download the podcast. Thank you all for a wonderful week you've been listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
We are Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710 KNUS. Enjoy your weekend.